Welcome back to the channel, guys. I appreciate y'all stopping through, man. Now today we are going to be going over the new Beta 19 OEMs. Now, there's been a lot of controversy surrounding these bikes, right? And I have 7 things that I want to touch on regarding these bikes and what I think about them and what I think how they're going to affect the game and stuff like that. Now, I'm not going to go over the changelog because all of the top creators have already done that, right? I'm going to be going over how I feel on these bikes, and I'm going to ride 4 of them. I'm going to ride the Suzuki, which we are on now. I'm going to ride the Kawasaki. I'm going to ride the Honda and the KTM. Now, the reason why I'm only riding those 4 bikes, mainly, the Suzuki and the Kawasaki got a power buff, right? So I'm going to see how they compare. The Honda is just like the outlier that I never ride, so I want to see how that feels. And the KTM is the bike that everybody rides because of, you know, it was the meta. Now, I'm going to talk about my feelings on all of these bikes and what I think about them, along with the 7 topics that I want to touch on. Now, first things first, with the Suzuki, the suspension is still amazing, and I feel like the Suzuki is better than what it was, and I really like the way it rides. And out of the 4 bikes that I have ridden, well, out of the 4 bikes in this video, I feel like as far as how well-rounded it is, the Suzuki is the best for being well-rounded, right? But some of the things I wanted to touch on, man. First things first is if you try to enter into a track with one of your old setups, and it might just be me, but I put an old setup on, try to load in, boom, game crashed. So definitely delete your old setups, man. They're not gonna work. That's just how that is, I guess, you know. But the second thing I wanted to touch on is with the rear end sliding out a bunch. I've done some testing. I've been riding them for about 3 hours now, and extending the swing arm length helps the bike not slide as much in and out of the corners, right? Now, on that same topic, or on that same like spectrum, if you don't let the throttle completely going into a corner, then the rear end doesn't slide out as much. If you're going into a corner and you just let off the gas all the way, the engine braking seems to lock the rear end up and slide it out more going into a corner. So I've been not letting all the way off the gas going into corners, and it has been helping the rear end not slide out going into the corner. Now, exiting the corner, you definitely have to have a lot more throttle control with the bike, or with the throttle, to stop the bike from sliding out. You know what I'm saying? You can't just smash it. You got to ease into it. And I've noticed, I actually like that. I do. But touching on that, the fact that I like that, I really do feel like these new OEMs are definitely going to hurt the casual player base. You know what I'm saying? Because the casual player base comes in looking for a fun motocross game. Some of them come in looking for a simulation, and as far as the simulation side of things, making the bikes harder to ride does make it feel more simulation-esque, right? But so before, I feel like the tracks were the hard part. The bikes were kind of straightforward, right? And now you're dealing with both. So, well, but at the same time, you know, once we learn to ride these bikes, which leads into another one, is, like it or not, these are the bikes that we have, and we will get used to them. Every time a new beta comes out, we get new bikes, and every time there's so many people that complain about them. But at the end of the day, we get used to these bikes, and then they end up coming out with another one. You know what I'm saying? So you're going to get used to these. You might not like them right now, but give them time. You will get used to them. And overall, I think it is a good thing for the game on the end of the pros, right? But on the end of the casual guys like me, the average players, I can't say it's a good thing right now or a bad thing right now. I just know over time, the more that we play them, we will get used to them. We will get better with the bikes, and eventually we'll, you know, forget about the Beta 18s. And muscle memory will kick in, and you'll be able to ride these bikes, you know, much better than what you are right now. So I think at the end of the day, the OEM team put so much time into these. I can't complain about them very much at all. I will get used to them because I love the game and I'm going to continue to play the game, man. That's just how I feel about it. Now, I know a lot of people don't like them, but I still stand by the fact that you will get used to them. Just give them time. Now, another thing that I've noticed is because of the change that they've made with the tires and how the load on the tire affects the bike, counterleaning is not as important. So a lot of turning now you can do without counterleaning. When you start to really counterlean, you get a lot more slide, and when you don't counterlean as much, you get less slide, right? And on that same kind of topic, sitting down is more important now than it was before. Before, it didn't matter a whole lot if you were standing or sitting. But I have noticed that sitting definitely helps, and I find myself sitting a lot more because the bike feels more controllable while I'm sitting. Now, that could just be a personal thing, but that also leads back to we will get used to these bikes, and you will find how you ride them the best and what works for you. You know what I'm saying? So you just got to spend time on these bikes, and you will get used to it without a doubt. Like, eventually everybody's gonna get used to it, and we're all gonna be riding these. We're all in it together. You know what I'm saying? Now, out of these 4 bikes that I've ridden, you can definitely tell the Kawasaki has a substantial increase in power, right? And it feels a lot more like the KTM to me because the rear end slides out more on the KTM and the Kawasaki than it does on the Honda or the Suzuki. But the Suzuki suspension is better than the Honda suspension, in my opinion. And personally, of the bikes that I've ridden, my favorite to ride is actually the Suzuki. And I'm really hoping that, it stays viable. I'm not 100% sure how it'll work a couple months down the road once everybody's gotten used to these bikes and everything. But I know right now I really enjoy the Suzuki, and that will probably be the bike that I ride the most. Now, the reason why I put the KTM in here is because this was the meta bike, right? This is what everybody rode. This and the Husqvarna. And in my opinion, this bike is still the meta bike, especially once you get to learn the physics of the new bikes. Once you get to figure out how the new bikes handle and you're comfortable on them, the KTM is still the best bike. Could be wrong, but that's just what it felt like while I was riding it. It felt like it had the most power, and I completed my best lap on the KTM. So I do think, though, at the same time, that the bikes are more, how do I say it? The bikes are more close together as far as meta or as far as like rideability and speed. But I still feel like the KTM has an edge. And I was riding the Husqvarna last night, and I feel like the Husqvarna and the KTM are pretty much the same, man. They both are very good bikes. But that leads me into more of my closing statements. I'm not the biggest fan of these bikes right now because I was so used to the OEM, the Beta 18 bikes. Now, obviously, Linz, Troy Jan, people like that have a crap ton of hours on the game and find the game just too easy or whatever, they're gonna enjoy these bikes more because it's gonna bring more of a challenge back to the game for them, right? Now, if you have less than 200 hours on the game, you're gonna hate these bikes, like guaranteed. You're gonna hate them at first, but give them time, like I said, and because like it or not, we're stuck with them, right? But they're not terrible. They're not. And it does bring the feeling of like when I first started playing the game, it brings that feeling back to me. Now, after I spend more time on the bikes, obviously that will change. I'll get better on them, yada, yada. But I'm just the average player. I don't race pro, nothing like that. So I just wanted to give you guys my thoughts, my opinions, and some things that I have realized since trying these new OEMs that maybe you didn't get from some of the other YouTubers. So hopefully you enjoyed this video, man. I just say stick with it. We're gonna get used to them. Everything's gonna be all good. So, but make sure you guys join that Discord, man. We got a good community in there, and we'd love to have you. Other than that, man, go down below, smash that like button, smash that subscribe button, and I'll see y'all next time, man. Peace.